Seth didn't mention it, but I am a libertarian. Libertarians believe that the fundamental belief of libertarians is that you own your own body. So it seems to me that that ties into my political beliefs, and I'm going to try anyways, to connect politics with my sexual history.
And capitalism.
Yes, definitely. They all go together.
Yeah. And English.
Very good question. Any others?
Somebody over there.
Paul Dallas said he asked both of you guys to teach at OCAD, but you both rejected. How come?
I just didn't have the time. I mean, I've often thought that it would be interesting to teach cartooning, but it seems like a really big undertaking. It seems like to do that, I'd have to really sit down and figure out exactly what I felt was the most important for to actually teach people about what the important points of being a cartoonist is, instead of just like your typical kind of class about how you make a few panels or how you come up with characters. It seems like a complicated task that would require real investment of time and thought to do something interesting and original. And I just have so much work to do. I knew I could not squeeze that into my life at this point.
It was mostly a time issue with me. I mean, maybe if they'd been willing to pay a lot more than they were. I mean, it was still a nice amount of money, but
it's flattering to be asked.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially because I went to OCA, and I mean, it's a flattering idea to think that you could someday go back there and teach, or OCAD now.
Anybody else?
Oh,
one more.
I wonder with the higher profile comics of which you and your work have been partly responsible, if you feel a certain pressure, or if you're influenced in the kind of subject matter that you choose for your work at this point.
Sorry, could you rephrase that?
Well, your work has a higher profile and it's taken more seriously by academics, by literary critics, and I wonder if that affects the kind of work you choose, and if it puts pressure on you in any sort of way.
The pressure mostly I'm feeling is time pressure. It doesn't feel like I have enough time to get the work done. But I don't know, I'm not worrying too much about how people perceive my work. In fact, I think I'm trying to destroy my career with this next book.
For sure. Well, for myself, I don't think I really think about the subject matter connected to like the audience in a really deep way. Because I do feel like the only hope you have of producing work that's of any importance is to try and actually like get in touch with what real life is about, and you can't really structure that in with a plan to make a marketable product. You have to think it's the same reason why you did the old work. I just thought like, what was important to me at that moment? What am I trying to say? What is my life about? These sort of things, and the work sort of naturally grows out of those things you're interested in or your feelings about being alive. I certainly could sit down, I suppose, and say, like, I think a book on Houdini would sell really well. Maybe I should do a book on Houdini. But that just seems like such a artificial project. I couldn't imagine doing it. I'd have to just be really, really interested in Houdini if that was my next book. I don't know. I always think it's a mistake to think about your audience because you can never know what they want. I mean, if you thought that way to begin with, they probably wouldn't be interested in what you're doing anyway, because they became interested in what you're doing because you pursued your own path. That's what somehow worked out, some earnestness in the work.
Yeah, it would be really dull trying to figure out what people want to read and
horrifying. When you look around the culture, it'd be frightening to think, like, well, I guess this is what people are interested in. Well, I guess we should wrap it up.
Yeah, great. Very brief intermission, about bathroom break, 5-7 minutes, and then kick off the awards. Thanks so much. Hello and welcome back. Before Before I begin the awards portion of the show, I feel we need to thank a few people and organizations who have helped out in the past few months. First off, I'd like to thank Peter and Chris at the Big Island, who've been invaluable in getting everything together, and the great consultants along the way. Drawn and Quarterly, which have supplied books and helped send out press releases. Rocco's Plum Tomato in the Annex, which hosted our jury dinner last Thursday. So a big hand to them. Our jury itself, Ben Portis, the front. Alan Hunt, who's around there. Tamara Faith Berger. Adam Goyen, who I don't think is here. And Gail Singer, who should be here somewhere. Thank you, Gail. Very nice. She stepped in at the last minute to replace somebody, and very thoughtful, so I appreciate that. And now the awards themselves. Just briefly, the Doug Wright Awards were established in May 2005 by a group of cartoonists, writers, and comic aficionados as a way of spotlighting the talent of Canadian cartoonists. This year's awards honor comics and graphic novels that were produced in the 2005 calendar year, and they were awarded in two categories, Best Emerging Talent and Best Book. But before I proceed, I'd just like to spend a few minutes talking about the man whose name is all over the room, actually, right now, Douglas Austin Wright. While there may be a few more famous cartoonists that come out of Canada, for example, Lynn Johnson, Ben Wicks, Hal Foster, there are few who could claim to be more quintessentially Canadian than Doug Wright. For more than 3 decades, Doug Wright was the king of the weekly comic strip in this country, and he still stands as one of Canada's most outstanding talents. Wright's most famous work, Doug Wright's Family, or Nipper, first appeared in the Montreal Standard in 1948. A wordless strip about a headache-inducing little boy. The intended one-off strip was an instant hit with readers, who probably readily identified with the wonders and woes of being a new parent. Wright's editors quickly ordered more, and eventually ran a contest to give the mischievous tot a name, Nipper. Wright, who was a bachelor at the time, always hated the name, and originally experimented with others, such as Kittles, Rackety, and Egghead, which were all equally kind of bad. Within a few years, Nipper, along with his English parents, became a bona fide hit, appearing in ads for Kraft, while his creator began popping up in ads for cigarettes and lighters. As popular as the script was, it turned a creative corner after Wright married and had his first child, a boy, Bill, in the early 1950s. The reality of having an actual Nipper underfoot seemed to bring a palpable air of realism to the script. Gone were the simple gags about a boy tormenting his parents or his young friends. In their place came tiny domestic narratives that were both humorous and surprisingly unsentimental. My earliest memory of the script stretches back to the time I picked up a small collection of Doug Wright's Family scripts, probably about 30 years ago. The cover featured a perfectly rendered scene of a smiling father looking on as his 2 boys pitched rocks in a nearby lake. The punchline in the back of the book shows 2 enraged fishermen screaming, yelling, and shaking their fists, faces red, as the horrified father stands on and the boys scurry back to the car, laughing at the predicament they've got their father in. This strip, along with most of the ones included inside the book, are so well observed and executed that as the years passed, I think I began to actually confuse them with my own childhood experiences. It's that believability, combined with his unwavering eye for family life, which endeared Doug Wright to 2 generations of Canadians. The wordless script can be read by both kids and parents alike, in both languages, and appreciated for completely different reasons. And if that wasn't enough, it was Wright's breathtaking art. A self-taught artist, his eye for detail and mastery of perspective managed to capture Canadiana in comic strip form. The scripts from the 60s serve as a time capsule of a period when Canada was still unsure of its identity in the modern world. It was all in the details: curling sweaters, aluminum screen doors, and station wagons, charcoal barbecues, and street hockey. At his best, Wright had the ability to transform the most mundane modern landscapes, like a shopping mall or a 1960s ranch home, into works of beauty. It was like he developed his own take on American pastoral. I like to call it Canadian suburban. As part of the preparations for a 2-volume retrospective of Wright's work that I'm writing and Seth is designing, we spent 3 days recently at the National Archives building in Gatineau, Quebec, combing over Wright's work. Among the 4,000 or so pieces of art, scrapbooks, and mementos was a fan letter from the legendary Canadian humorist Gregory Clark. It's a short letter, but in it he praises Wright's early work on Nipper and signs off by saying, I expect he was an institution from the day he was born. It must be nice to be the father of a kid that is a member of every family in the land. Wright is sadly no longer with us. He died in 1983. But he was, from all I can gather from talking to people, very humble and not a fan of hype or hyperbole. Somehow I think Clark's words are a fitting epitaph for Doug Wright. And that's it. I'm also happy to say that Ken Wright, Doug's youngest son, and Jules that are here, are with us tonight, as well as Phyllis Wright, Doug's widow, who will actually present the Wright Award trophies in a little bit. Before that, Ken, you want to say a few words? Yeah?
Thanks very much, Brad. It's an honor to be here with you tonight to assist you in the presentation of the second annual Doug Wright Awards. On behalf of my family, I'd like to thank the co-founders, especially Brad and Seth, for their tireless work in organizing the event tonight, as well as to found the awards themselves a year ago, and for revitalizing the interest in my father's work, just when I thought I'd shook the nickname Nipper. Due in part to the interest through the efforts of Brad and Seth, I'm happy to announce that the city of Burlington, where Doug Wright's family lived in the 60s and 70s, has decided to permanently recognize my father and his contribution to Canadian cartooning by officially naming a street in a new subdivision, Doug Wright Street. And they have committed as well to naming a park on that street, Doug Wright Park. And we as his family are truly honored. Doug Wright's real family looks forward to the continued success of these awards, and we express our best wishes to tonight's winners. Our father would be honored to have his name associated to the talent that you are recognizing tonight. Thank you.
Emerging talent. I'm just going to give a brief description of each book, the trophy. Starting with Skin, published by Kiss Machine. Written by Toronto author and performer Mariko Tamaki, and drawn by her cousin, illustrator Jillian Tamaki, Skin is a 24-page comic that chronicles the daily drudgery of a high school outsider named Skin Dakota. Set in 1992 Toronto, the book is told via excerpts from the diary of a 16-year-old would-be goth as she grapples with teen angst, suicidal jocks, late-night Wiccan circles, and sexual awakening. The first comic work by both creators, Skin has since been adapted for the stage and will be released as a full-length graphic novel by Grandwood Books. 2007? 2008. 2008. So 2 years. Look for it. So Skin. Next up is Northwest Passage, Volume 1, by Oni Press. Written and drawn by Toronto cartoonist Scott Chandler. Northwest Passage is the first of a multi-part graphic novel that retells the tale of famed adventurer Charles Lord in the British colony of Rupert's Land in 1755. The story begins as Lord and a small band of survivors are forced to flee into the Canadian wilderness after French mercenaries ambush England's Fort Newcastle. The reader follows the survivors as they attempt to rally the local natives against the new threat. Told with energy and a keen eye for historical accuracy, Chandler's cartoon-influenced art draws readers of all ages into this unique tale of pioneer life. This is Chandler's third graphic novel, but his first as writer-artist. Previously collaborated with writer Jay Torres on the award-winning graphic novels Days Like This and Scandalous. Northwest Passage. Next up is Nil, A Land Beyond Belief, published by Slave Labor Graphics. Written and drawn by cartoonist illustrator James Turner. Nail Beyond Belief is an ambitious graphic novel that lures readers into the desolate life of its protagonist, Pround. Never had to say that loud, is that correct? A foreman on the deconstruction ship Derrida, Null is prodded out of his complacency after he is falsely accused of murder. Over 232 pages, Turner's audacious tale follows his nihilistic lead character through a journey that combines a clear-line art style with savvy references to philosophy, ancient Aztec death cults, and an overall criticism of nihilistic chic. Nil is James Turner's first graphic novel. Nil. Next up is Dark Adaptation, published by Peddler Press. The latest comic from Toronto-based cartoonist musician Lorenz Peter, Dark Adaptation is an autobiographical tale of a bohemian artist's homecoming, which is prompted by the illness of his mother. The trip quickly becomes a journey into the past, with all of its demons intact, and leads to a confrontation with both his father and the small-town existence the main character is left behind. Told with gripping black and white art, Dark Adaptation tackles a familiar tale with refreshing originality and honest emotion. This is Lorenz Peter's third graphic novel. His last, Chaos Mission, was published by Peddler Press in 2003. Last but not least is The Unexpurgated Tale of Lordy Jones, published by Conundrum Press. Fan Club. The second graphic novel from the multi-talented cartoonist artist Mark Neely, Lordy Jones is a twisted fable about a little boy who tries to cheat the Tooth Fairy by painting a piece of cord with looking paper. As payback, the Tooth Fairy puts a unique curse on Lordy Jones that has to be seen to be believed. Surreal and darkly humorous. You like that? Lordy Jones. It's a family show. Lordy Jones is another intriguing work from one of Canada's most creative cartoonists. Mark Neely's first graphic novel, Enter Avarice, was published by Conundrum in 2003. Yes, and the winner is, in lieu of accountants coming out and doing this, I will open this up and announce the winner in dramatic fashion is Dark Adaptation by Lorenz Peter. That looks like Lorenz. No, never met you. Are you sure this is Lorenz? I've never met you. Am I deep? No? Congratulations.
Thanks, this was really good, really wonderful stuff to be amongst all these awesome comic artists and getting this Doug Wright Award thing happening. Yeah, I really didn't think I would make my way up here, but here I am holding this thing. It's beautiful, and I want to thank lots of people. Beth Follett, of course, publisher of Peddler Press, and wonderful people at this awards ceremony, and Ellie, of course, my girl, and yeah, all these people reading comics. Thank you very much, and more to come, to be continued.
Chester was on the nomination committee this year, and he is going to give a short discussion, appreciation of Dark Adaptation. Chester Brown again.
Thank you. Dark Adaptation is Lorenz Peter's third book. I read his first book, The Last Remaining Ancient Mellish Birds, several years ago when it was first released. I've got to admit that I had not liked this shapeless, meandering story, but I thought the artwork showed promise. A while later, I was at a comic book convention here in town, and I saw Lawrence sitting behind a table. So I went over and told him that I'd read Mellishberg and that I liked his drawing style. He said, "Oh, well, here's my new book, Chaos Mission." There was an awkward pause. I was hoping he would give me a free copy. When the pause got too long, I reluctantly pulled out my wallet and paid for a book I didn't expect to like. To my surprise, I was wrong. I enjoyed Chaos Mission enormously. It was a huge creative leap forward for Lawrence. The main character was a young man named Laud, who does a lot of drugs and who survives by shoplifting. I assumed that it was at least semi-autobiographical. I don't know if Lawrence wants to confirm that or not. Anyway, when Dark Adaptation came out last year, I was eager to buy it and eager to read it. I wasn't disappointed. Like Chaos Mission, that Dark Adaptation is a creative leap forward. It also seems to be based on Lawrence's real-life experiences, in this case as related to family matters, particularly his mother's illness and his antagonistic relationship with his father. If Chaos Mission had a problem, it was that it was a bit wordy. Wordiness is fine, but a cartoonist should also let a story breathe by occasionally letting the images speak for themselves. Lawrence has now learned to do this. Here's a wonderful sequence from Dark Adaptation in which the main character, Lulu, returns to his hometown after being away for many years. Actually, could you go back? The sequence starts there, and one of the neat things about it was before this, all of the panels had been, well, a lot smaller, and suddenly he goes back to his hometown, and this page hits, and you can really feel the impact of returning to a familiar place and all those emotions coming back. Continue forward. I just love this whole sequence. The drawing's gorgeous. And then, Lawrence's artwork really shines when he's drawing the natural world. The page on the left is particularly impressive. And then the words arrive on the next page when he goes into this place where he used to work. In the fourth panel, he says, "I used to work here, over 10 years ago, and I just love the reaction or non-reaction he gets in the fifth panel, that cold and uninterested stare." On to the next. This is a page from earlier in the book, and again it shows off the way that he draws the natural world. That panel in the middle, particularly, I love. This is from when he's younger and he gets lost out in the woods, and then at the end of the page he gets back home and no one had missed him. And next page. One after. Just another scene out in the woods, beautiful moonlit night. He's just an enormously talented cartoonist. It's too bad we have to give the Emerging Talent Award to only one winner, because all of the creators nominated in this category are doing great work. But I do think Lawrence is a cartoonist who does deserve more attention, so I hope that winning this award will help to push him into the public eye a bit more. Congratulations, Lawrence.
Before I proceed to the Best Book category, there's actually an honorable mention for the Best Emerging Talent, which is the first time this has happened. But at the jury meeting, the jury members agreed, voted to give an honorable mention to Skin. We made up a plaque. So there's a plaque. Take a moment. So do you want to say a few? Oh, sorry, I didn't
I was just saying I was so glad I didn't have to come up here. Unfortunately, Jillian Tamaki, who's my cousin and not my sister, as is often reported in the press, is trapped in the United States and is very, very sorry that she couldn't be here. She married an American and now they won't let her come back. Or they won't let her come back to the US till she comes to Canada. But I know that she shares, we're both really honored to have been recognized by the Doug Wright Awards. And obviously we want to thank Kiss Machine. This comic would not exist if not for Kiss Machine and Emily Polweary, who agreed with me one night at midnight in Ottawa that it would be really cool to make a gothic Lolita lesbian story. So there's not a lot of people who would be into that, and I'm really glad that Emily was. And so look for a longer version of Skim in 2008. And thank you.
I should mention, I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning, but all of the nominated books, a lot of them are actually being raffled off, but a lot of them also for sale, including Skim at Beguiling Tale. So thank you right over there at any point. Next up, that book. I feel bad, it's a heavy trophy and I feel bad. Forcing fellas to hold it every year. as long as you're fine with it. It's very nice, yes. You should go up to the winners afterwards and take a closer look at it. First up is Pyongyang, A Journey in North Korea by Drawn and Quarterly Books. The true-to-life tale of a French-Canadian animator cartoonist, Guido Lil, who was sent on a work visa in the secretive capital city of North Korea. Once there, Lil is faced with cultural and linguistic alienation, boredom, and cravings for Western food. Armed with a smuggled copy of George Orwell's 1984, Lil is allowed to explore Pyongyang, but only while his translator is along and a guide. His astute and wry musings on life in the notorious regime form the basis of this extraordinary graphic novel. Pyongyang is an informative, personal, and accessible look at an enigmatic country. Lil's latest graphic novel has been called a perfect blend of anecdote, reflection, and pitch-perfect atmospherics. Pyongyang. Next up is Wimbledon Green, also by Drawn and Quarterly Books. The latest book from Seth, Wimbledon Green, is an amusing caper that explores the fictional world of comic book collectors that is rife with intrigue and high finance. Part riotous chase, part satirical jab, Wimbledon Green both dissects and revels in the human urge to collect. The book follows the title character, the self-proclaimed world's greatest comic book collector, through his road to fame, and features many characters that will be familiar to anyone who's ever stepped inside a comic book shop. Wimbledon Green is Seth's fourth graphic novel. He won last year's Wright Award for Best Book for Clyde Fans Book 1. Wimbledon Green. Next nominee is Dragon Slippers. This is what an abusive relationship looks like, by Rosalind B. Penfield, and published by Penguin Canada. Dragon Slippers is an autobiographical look at one woman's slow dive into a violent relationship. The story follows the experience of a successful businesswoman who slowly but suddenly finds herself trapped in a relationship with a man who is both emotionally and physically abusive. Raw and ringing with emotion, the book is the author's first venture into comic storytelling, and many of the pages are drawn in the moment, which only add to the reader's experience. Susan Swan has said of the book, "It's a must-read for its art, its wit, and its insights into the ways women are duped into betraying themselves for love." Rosalind B. Penfield is also a swimmer. Dragon Slippers. The third nominee for Best Book is Paul Moves Out, published by Drawn and Quarterly Books. The third in his critically acclaimed series of autobiographical graphic novels. Michel Rivigliati's latest book explores his character's progression from teenager to young adult. Based in Montreal, Paul Moves Out tracks the emotional journey of its lead character as he moves out of his parents' house and into his first apartment with his girlfriend, enjoying life's pleasures as well as confronting its challenges. Found The Toronto Star is described in Paul Moves Out as, if Tintin were to eschew globetrotting and settle in Montreal, his life might look like this. It's a pretty good quote. Paul Moves Out by Michelle Rodriguez. The last but not least nominee for Best Book is Scott Pilgrim, Volume 2 by Oni Press. The second volume of Brian Lee O'Malley's genre-blending tour de force, this book thrusts its lead character into further adventures with his new girlfriend and pits him in a battle against the latest of her 7 evil boyfriends. Inspired by Japanese manga, indie rock, and Super Mario Brothers, O'Malley crafts a thrilling graphic confection that is both fun and formally innovative. Brian Lee O'Malley lives in Halifax with his wife, cartoonist Hope Larson, who won the 2004 Wright Award for Best Emerging Talent. Scott Pilgrim, Volume 2. And the winner is very excited in the back room about the winner. It's Paul Moves Out by Michelle Rodriguez. Michelle could not make it a long trip down the 401 for tonight because it was in Montreal, but he has sent along a few words. This guy again. See, Chester's never won a Wright Awards. This is the only way you can figure out to actually win one. It's just to tape Michelle. But, no, he sent some words of thanks, and as well, Chester, after that, we'll talk about this work.
Actually, I'm going to talk about the book first and then read the little speech that Michelle sent. I'm delighted to be able to accept this on Michelle's behalf. It does seem appropriate after yesterday's terrible news out of Montreal that we would tonight be celebrating a very positive and life-affirming story set in that city. I was born in Montreal, grew up in that area, and went to art school there in the late 1970s. The first half of Paul Moves Out is an autobiographical account of Michelle's experiences in a Montreal art school in the late 1970s. So, when I read the book, it was stomping on my nostalgia buttons on almost every page. And it did it so well. I was stunned at just how perfectly Michelle captured that particular urban environment. At times, the book almost feels like a love letter to Montreal. I wasn't surprised to find out that the French language edition was a bestseller in Quebec. But I wasn't sure how well the book would read for people who weren't a part of that time and place. Any concern I had that this is a you-had-to-be-there type of book has been laid to rest by the decision of the Wright Awards jury. As the title indicates, Paul Moves Out is about young people becoming adults. It's a very sweet portrait of a time of youthful enthusiasm and an innocent belief in love. Look at this page here, the one on the right. What makes me feel so wistful about that last panel? It's not just being under the covers with someone you love. It's being under the covers with someone you love on a mattress